Don't wait till the battle's over. Don't wait till the struggle ends. Shout out, right now. Shout out. Don't wait till you make it.
Hey everyone, this is Philip and welcome to the PHILLIP Show. I'm so excited that you are here. So let's go ahead and grab our coffee and we'll jump in 1.5. Yeah, so I hope everybody's having a great day. So listen, this is June and June is Pride Month. If you're just joining us this month, this is Pride Month and the PHILLIP Show has partnered with Yellow Springs Pride as the media sponsor to bring you interviews in and around the LGBTQ community. And this particular series is calling Inspiring Stories That Transcend. So we're going to be looking at different people in the trans community and how their story is very similar to our stories. We're going to look at how life happens, how identity happens, how we can kind of conquer some of the misnomers, some of the misconceptions to educate and get us all kind of on the same page and move forward. We're not all the same, but we all have the same path and we're all moving in the same direction. So hopefully these series, these interviews, this time that we have together this month in particular, will give a little bit more insight into people that are very similar and sometimes very different than us, and give us a little bit more understanding. It'll give us a little bit more caring, and I'm super excited about it. So I'm going to get out of the way and introduce you to awesome person today, and we are going to jump in and hear about the life, the journey, and all of the in-between of Vance. Hey.
Hey, hello, Philip. Thank you for welcoming me to the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you were able to make it and you just agreed to be here with us and just kind of be transparent and just share your journey. So I'm going to let you just tell the people just a little bit about who you are and whatever you'd like to share. And then we're just going to go from there.
All right. That sounds great, Philip. Thank you. So a little bit about me. My name's Vance. I'm 34. I'm about to be 35. I live in Yellow Springs with my wife and 5 kids. And I identify as a trans male. So what that basically means is that the identity that I was born with is not the same that I match with on the inside. So the anatomy that I have doesn't quite match what I feel on the inside. So like for me, I really knew at a very young age that I was different. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't really know what it meant at that time. I was around 5 years old. And I just knew that I felt very different. I didn't know exactly the terms to put to it. And that was around like in the early 90s. So at that time, it wasn't really something that was well known. At least it wasn't in my family.
Right. So you're saying at that time, because I've heard some other people say that before, you knew something was different. You're not like other kids, but you don't know what to call it. Like the verbiage isn't there and the understanding isn't there. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. Okay.
You know, and like as a child, you know, the first thing you do when you are, you know, nervous or worried is you go to your parents or someone that, you know, you respect and you go to share this news. So here I am, this little, you know, 5-year-old, and I feel like I have this courage of a lion to just go up and say, Mom, I'm a boy.
Mm.
And, you know, for me, and I think with a lot of other people, I didn't quite get the response I was looking for at that time. Yeah. You know, and the way that I was kind of responded to was my family came from a very religious background, and there was immediately something wrong with me.
Gotcha.
So I was actually put into like a type of therapy, which they now call conversion therapy, to try to figure out exactly what was going on with me. And unfortunately was viewed a lot as mental health issues, which I see a lot now, in the community these days. And so, and even from a religious standpoint, I felt very like I had to pray the sin away,
Sure.
So those are some pretty big things that I faced in growing up. And I went through a lot of different traumas in my life that felt very, to me, it felt like they were occurring because I was different, because I had voiced these concerns of being different. And so that had, a big impact on my life. And it kind of helped me, like I pushed that stuff down,
Gotcha.
my feelings down. In order for me, it was, the risk of pushing it down was a lot safer than it was to continue to come out.
So when did you find, I guess, not the courage, I don't want to say that. Let me back up, because you said something in your, when you were younger, and you went to conversion therapy. Seems as though conversion therapy. At what age I think you said you were 5, correct? That's when you got all that courage at 5 o'clock, or at 5 o'clock, at 5 o'clock years old. At 5 years old, you got this courage to say something you didn't know was going to be something taboo to say. You're just like, hey, I noticed something, and I'm talking to the people that generally have all the answers.
Right.
Right. So then you tell them, was it something like you're saying pray, they're saying pray the gay away, pray. Had you even been in a relationship at that point when you're doing all of this conversion, or was it because you had these thoughts?
It was because I had these thoughts.
Gotcha.
Yes. So then I suppressed these feelings for, a long time, feeling like there was something wrong with me. And, I continued to, as much as I could comfortably do, live authentically as far as the way that I dressed. But then there was a lot of times where, people would still, let's glam you up to being more feminine. Then when I was around like 13, I came out as quote unquote, I came out as gay. And that was about as comfortable as I could get to come out in any form at that age. I was a little older, a little more understanding of what was going on.
So you came out as gay, but you didn't come out as trans?
Not until later.
Got you.
Yes. So, yeah, so kind of fast forwarding to where when I did come out as trans, I had been in a relationship with a partner for a really long time, and we had been having discussions of wanting to have a child together. And I was the only one at the moment that could conceive. So the decision was made, I would conceive the child. And when that conversation came about, I had this courage again as an adult, to come forward and say, this is who I am inside. And, I was at that time even given an ultimatum that, well, you can either have a child or you can transition, but you can't have both.
Wow.
And so being a parent was always a really big dream of mine. I always wanted to have a child. So I went forward and said, okay, I guess I'm going to, again, dismiss myself as as kind of everyone else was doing in my life. And I'm going to go forward and have a child. And I think it was really during that time where, I was pregnant. I was kind of forced into that feminine role to be a new mother. And, it was about a year after I had my daughter. I was dealing with just a lot of depression and anxiety, and it was really kind of coming into my face like, this is a life and death truth that you really need to deal with. And so I did. I reached out to a friend who I knew was kind of involved in the community, and she helped me get some resources. And that's one of the biggest things for me was it took one person, one person to see me and to hear me and to validate me and to really view me as who I was, that helped me get the support that I needed. And, I feared losing a lot of things in my life coming out. And I did, I did lose some relationships and obviously some relationships within my family.
And to be clear, this is coming out the second time.
This is coming out the second time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
yes. And I still have lost some of my family members, and a lot of my family members have come along. A lot of, I think, what was missing there was the education and a lot of the resources. I, for one, didn't even know what they were at the time. And so the more I became to educate and kind of help bring these resources out, the more, my family and the people around me were able to understand me just a little bit more and see me a little bit more.
So as you continued to move forward, in your perspective, why is it so difficult for family members or friends to accept you as you are? What do you think is the barrier for them to do for not doing that?
Honestly, I think it's fear. I think it's fear of losing, feeling like they're going to lose, the person that they've always known. But in turn, it's actually the complete opposite. You're actually able to envelop this person for who they are and watch them, excel and be happy and live authentically.
Yeah, because you're right, because it's almost the opposite. They think they're losing somebody, but in truth, they're kind of being introduced to who they already knew. They just didn't know.
I mean, I'm the same person, and I think my family can attest, for that after years of kind of not understanding that I'm actually a better person than I was because I am living my true self, and they see me happier and not struggling as much with anxiety and depression. And, it saved my life.
Yeah. I want to speak to the mental part of it really quickly, because I think a lot of people don't really understand the weight, the mental weight of emotion, anxiety, and all those things that somebody is under when they are living their life in a way that it's beyond unauthentic. It's beyond that. It's literally contrived. Do you know what I'm saying? It's literally contrived. And a lot of people don't understand the weight of having to be somebody that you're really not.
Right. And even after I stepped into my truth and I said, this is who I am. And I came out, publicly, like I worked in a public setting. I work at a local coffee shop. And I'd worked there for, 5 years before I transitioned. So, I faced a lot of people watching me transition and change. And, I dealt with a lot of, it's not over just because you start to transition. You still have a lot of, education and a lot of things that you have to go through, with that. And though I feel like the more understanding that people can have, the more education people can have, we can avoid, as much of that as possible.
Yeah. How, based on, based on the village where we are in Yellow Springs, how would you say your journey has either been benefited or challenged by being in such a small community?
Well, Yellow Springs is an amazing community. I felt welcome here the minute that I stepped into the village, and I love that the schools are very inclusive. I have five, like I said, I have 5 children of my own, and I love that they get to celebrate who they are, and they're taught to be who they are. And, there are a lot of resources around in the area for them. And yeah, I've never felt uncomfortable in my skin here. And that's part of the reason why, my family and I chose to live here.
Mm. Now, having your children in an inclusive community, do you find that you have to have conversations with them about the difference that your family may be from other families?
Not really. I see a variety of family dynamics in the village, and I have a couple kids of my own have expressed that they might be non-binary. Which
for people who may not know, can you explain that?
Yeah, so transgender is kind of an umbrella term. So non-binary kind of means that you don't really identify with either male or female. You just kind of can be a combination of both. You can, not identify as any particular gender. So I feel like when my kids came to me, a few of them came to me and expressed that to me. I was so glad that they felt like they had that support and that love, and even the resources around them to where they understood it before they really, before they were faced with the struggle themselves.
Wow. What would be one of the things that you would say is a big misconception when it comes to being transgender? We have a society in and of itself has a great way of misunderstanding or assuming or creating narratives. What would you say is one of the bigger misunderstandings that society has when it comes to transgender people?
Wow. Well, there's quite a few, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions I feel that people have is that this is a choice. That we choose this, that we're not happy with, with who we are. So we're choosing to want to be different, and, it's not a choice.
So would you explain, just briefly, explain why you say it's not a choice? Like if somebody would say, well, it's a choice, why isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different research and studies out there that could show that. But from personal experience, it just, I don't feel like I was choosing who I was. You're born a particular, they say you're born a particular way, but your brain develops, at different times than your body develops. And for me, it wasn't about choosing who I wanted to be, what I wanted to look like. It was about choosing myself and who I already knew I was.
Would you say, this is really good because it's almost as if you don't get to choose who you are. You always know who you are, but you get to choose how you live.
Correct. Yes.
So like when you come out, you're not really coming out to yourself. You've already you knew who you were from jump, but now I choose to live as who I am. And that's
yes.
the coming out. And I think a lot of people don't really get that part because they don't see the transition. They don't see the fact that this is what I've been this entire time, but I was choosing to live to make you feel comfortable and not pursue who I am. And then when I do decide, for a lot of people, it's like a light switch, like, well, what? You know, but you've been walking that journey your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
That is really interesting. So we talked about resources, and I know our area has several. What are some of the resources that you find useful, particularly for people who may be going or have gone or maybe thinking about going through the journey of living their authentic truth? Or some people who may want to understand what what all this means. You know, there are people out there. You're right. The education there's education out there, and there are people who really want to understand. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So, what are some resources that you think would be super helpful?
Well, one of the biggest resources that really helped me was the Gatlin Dame Group.
Mm-hmm.
That is a phenomenal organization. Two of my friends, I became friends with them over the years. They run it, and it's basically a support group that provides education, support, and outlets for transgender, you know, non-binary, non-conforming, even for allies. So I've seen they meet like once a month, and if you look them up, they're on Facebook, they're on all the social media platforms. You can find their meetings. It's a very it's a safe, exclusive, you know, it's a safe place where, you know, they don't actually even give the address out until the meeting. So it is a very safe place for everyone to come. But I've seen teachers come with their students. I've seen parents come with their children just to really help understand from a perspective that they can't get, you know, anywhere else. You know, and the Dayton LGBT Center, they have a ton of resources you can get online. They have pamphlets that will give you all the information you need for transgender doctors, that any healthcare that you might need. And then, of course, you have the Equitas Health Center, which can help with anyone's, you know, transitions, or, you know, if you need a therapist, or, you know, any of that stuff that you need to take care of. And then another really great one would be PFLAG.
Okay, and tell us what that is.
Okay, PFLAG stands for Parents, Families, Friends, and Allies. So that's a really good community resource for people who, you know, want to show support to children and teenagers, and, you know, even adults. I find it useful for adults. And they usually have meetings locally in the area, that you can find those available online as well.
That's awesome. And for everybody out there, we'll put those links up so you can have those resources. Vance, I wanted to ask you, for somebody who is, let's say, an ally, or they want to be an ally, but they just don't know, what advice can you give them? And let me preface it by saying this. A lot of times people want to learn more, but they feel very much like they may offend if they ask, or if they assume, and I'm not talking about the people who are deliberately being offensive. I'm talking about the ones that really want to know, but they don't know how to approach or how to ask, so they don't. What advice would you give them?
Well, you know, first, I would recommend, you know, doing whatever research you can do on your own, but also, you know, there are a lot of people out there that are willing, like myself, you know, to share my story and to really help people to understand. But, you know, the main thing that, you know, most people really want is they want to be heard, and they want to be listened to, and they want to be validated. And you know, sadly, the need for that is really lacking in the community. And, you know, so I think just being a listening ear and understanding, trying to understand just who this person is that, that's coming to you, and, get involved in the support groups, go to Pride. I feel like the more you envelop into something, the more authenticity you can see, because it's so much different, from just an outsider's view than being a part of the community.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think if you align yourself with somebody that's different from you, and it could be within this community or without, whatever community, but if you align yourself with someone and you develop relationship, it could be friendship, whatever, but you start to understand the individual, because I think it's very difficult for somebody to try and understand a community.
Yes.
But if you start with an individual, that kind of opens up your eye and your perspective into their life. And then from one, it can, multiply into many, it can turn into a community, but it'll definitely give the opportunity for more discussion. And I think people will have a little bit more permission maybe to ask some questions, because now there's a relationship that's being built. There will be a little bit more understanding where the questions may be coming from.
Yes, and I think that's a very important point that you made. Is it's just like really trying to understand and have a relationship with anyone else. You would ask, you can ask the same kinds of questions that you would ask, someone else. You're not going to ask, there are certain questions you're not going to ask someone regardless of what their gender is. So, you don't ask those questions, to someone who identifies as transgender. But, for example, if you didn't know what pronouns I used, I would rather you ask me as a person, hey, what pronouns do you use, versus, calling me something that I'm not. Yeah.
That's a really good point. That's a very, very, very good point. So just ask. Conversation,
Yes.
And I love the fact that you kind of bottom lined it to, it's just like anybody else. And that's a very good point. It can be very standoffish to try and approach somebody that's very different from you, but everybody's very different from us until we meet them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know about anybody's life really until we meet them, until we have a conversation. So we don't have to jump into the 12-foot part first.
Right.
Like, if you don't know my name, don't ask me no personal questions. Right.
What I mean? Yeah, just get to know them. Take time to get to know them and understand them as a person. I mean, you'll see that you're going to connect, with them just like you would anyone else. There are some people you connect with, and, some people you don't. But that doesn't mean you don't connect with all people of that, type.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for you, this is, it's still on topic, but so what are some hobbies? What do you like to do?
Well, I love art. I love to write. I love to hike, spend time with my kids. My wife and I like to travel. Obviously you can't travel with COVID, but, we love to go visit different places and, I love to garden and cook and, just the same kinds of things that, everyone else likes to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. I always like to hear people's hobbies,
mm-hmm.
because it makes me think of things that I would like to do. Because generally people's hobbies are different than mine. Anything with outdoors, I'm like, what? Like what? No, but it always gives me ideas. So,
mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that, again, you bottom lined it. It's just kind of like, if we're looking at it through the perspective of assumptions and, misinterpretation, it's like, hey, by the way, we're the same. We all have all these, hobbies and likes and dislikes, so one of the things that's always interesting, just to reaffirm, is that we're more similar than we are dissimilar.
Mm-hmm.
People are more alike than not. And after we stop concentrating on the differences, it's so much easier to find that out. And it could be for this community, it could be speaking about race. It could be, once we concentrate on the things that make us so similar, the differences really kind of just fall away.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I am so glad that you took the time to share not only your story, but the useful resources that you did. Because again, there are going to be people that really are looking for more education, and they may not be on the page of being comfortable enough to just walk up and ask. So knowing that there are resources and there are companies, if you will, that specialize in education is, it's really awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to say thanks again for coming. I hope you have an awesome, awesome day.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just real quick before I get off here, I just wanted to tell everyone, I want everyone to know that like you are seen and you are heard, and you're not alone. I really want people to know that if you're going through it, or even as someone who's trying to understand it, you're not alone, and there are people out there, that want to love and support you and see you and help you get where you want to be.
That's wonderful. You are seen and you are not alone. Vance, thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Phillip.
Absolutely. Listen, and I could not have summed it up better myself. You are seen, you are heard, you are not alone, you are valuable, your story matters, your life matters, your journey has purpose, and there are people that are willing to walk alongside you, with you, in support of you. And that is wonderful. Live authentically, be yourself. Remember that you are the best you in the world. And we will see you next time on The PHILLIP Show.
Don't